Hey there. Oh, you got it, Joe.
Ah,
Look at that. There we are.
hey, do you want to see a trick I could do when I was a kid? Believe it or not, Vulcan salute, non-Vulcan salute, Vulcan, non-Vulcan.
That's funny. That's funny. Hey, how is everybody doing tonight? By the way, guys, thanks for watching and welcome to Trek Tonight. As always, I'm Chris Pitcher. It just says Chris for some reason. I don't know why. Leo Genesek and Joe Townsell, my cohorts in crime.
Absolutely.
How's everybody doing?
Not bad, not bad. This was I don't want to get into the episode, but I thought it was a very interesting one. I'll say that, and I quite liked it.
Right.
We'll go into the details of that later. It's the weather in New York has sort of been up and down. Like we've had 70s, we've had days in the 70s. It is ostensibly fall,
right?
And then it'll be like 51 degrees the next day. So global warming apparently a thing. Just FYI. And what else? We had the midterms just happened, and I think we're all sort of glad that they're over, although they're not really over because they're still counting, and there's going to be runoffs.
I know.
So it is. I keep telling myself we're working towards the Federation, in spite of this.
Very slowly.
Hopefully not towards the mirror universe.
Yeah.
Although sometimes it does feel like we're living in the mirror universe.
Yeah. Speaking of which, I have my mirror universe dagger and my agonizer.
I'll behave.
Yeah.
I'm very glad we're not in the same room.
Right, exactly. I keep digging through stuff, trying to get my house organized, and I keep finding all kinds of stuff. I got to tell you guys, bear with me. I'm getting used to this because I have an actual camera as opposed to my laptop camera. And so these guys that I'm talking to are down here, but you guys are up there. So I'm going to try to keep talking to you, but if I end up down here, just bear with me. That's why I'm not used to it yet.
Looks great though, Chris.
Thank you.
You were telling us it was going to be a little bit different tonight, and it's a great image. And
thank you.
Of course, the subject matter always makes it great, right?
Well, yeah. But what I'm doing, just so you know, is I got a new phone, and I got an iPhone 14, and the new software in the 14 allows you to use your iPhone as a webcam, and you can take advantage of the better quality camera versus the one that's in your laptop. And it's kind of cool. I had to fiddle with it a little bit to get it to work because it works directly with apps, but I don't think it works directly with the internet and with websites. And we stream off of StreamYard, which is a website. So I had to go and fiddle around to get it to work, but it finally did. So
all right.
Yeah.
Well, things are a little bit nippy in here in Arizona. Where people think of Arizona as being hot, but I'm at about some sizable elevation actually. So winter's already here, and in this part of the state, and with daylight savings time, as you know, I mean, I'm now an hour closer to you in terms of time. You folks in the east,
right?
So it's an hour later than usual for people around me, and so it's already nighttime here as well.
Right.
Well, it's real cold in the desert at night. I'm assuming that all of Arizona is a desert.
Yeah,
pretty much.
In a broad, I'm painting that state in a very broad brush.
In a broad flyover kind of way.
Yes, but but I know that arid areas get very cold at night because there's, nothing to hold on to the heat.
Right.
I think.
I know it's a chilly one tonight.
Okay.
Well, do we want to jump into this episode?
Let's do it.
Yes.
All right. Let me see here. What am I doing? We are talking about All the World's a Stage. What is this episode? What number is this? 14? 13. 13. Right, 13. And basically, in a nutshell, the crew of the Protostar get a distress call from a planet, and they decide to go there because they want to still keep helping people, even though they can't rejoin the Federation with that weapon built into the ship. And they stumble across a civilization that for some reason is mimicking TOS era Starfleet.
Yeah.
And clearly it appears there must be a prime directive contamination situation there, but and that's sort of what happens, and they have to figure that out. And there's also the distress call is because there is a disease that is affecting the people that live on this planet, and they were told that someone from Starfleet would come and save them. So what did you guys think? I loved this episode. To me, it felt like the most Star Trek episode I've seen out of the series yet. Maybe it's because now we're starting to get into this responding to distress calls, going on landing parties, meeting up with civilizations. I don't know. But it feels like we bridged ourselves now into, very typical Star Trek plot lines. What do you guys think?
Well, if I may, I'll just say, I'm sorry, Leo. I'll just be brief. I'm a newcomer to Prodigy, as you know, both of you. And, but I do agree with you, Chris, in the sense that I know enough from watching bits here and there, and the few episodes I have seen in their entirety,
right,
that it does seem to be more of a traditional TOS or even Strange New Worlds type of approach in terms of episodic and storytelling. And yeah, I mean, as far as my overall impressions, I mean, based on what I've seen so far, I think it's the best. It definitely, I'll be honest, it held my interest a lot more than episode 11. Episode 12 captivated me a little bit more, and this one improved on both of those for me. So I was pleased.
Cool.
I did like it. It was an interesting sort of take. It's almost like cargo cults, if you're aware of those. That they were very prominent in the South Pacific, because both the Japanese and the Allies would be dropping supplies off on these islands where they would have bases. And the people who were native to those islands, sort of benefited from having sort of, I guess, the overspill from these things. And these cargo cults built up even after both sides stopped dropping stuff out of the sky for them. So it's sort of like that. And in fact, I was going to say this in the end, but I'll share it with you now. As many of you may know, I do Star Trek haiku every day, and now that we're doing Trek, I can let myself be inspired. This is one I wrote. Galileo lost, creates its own cargo cult. We believe, ensign. I'm downtown Morris Center, University, Manhattan. Thank you, Craig.
Yeah, thanks for the update.
We were all wondering where you were.
Yeah, Craig also tells me that the iPhone camera can be coerced to work on all platforms. Well, maybe we'll talk about that, Craig, later on.
Yes.
How to do that.
But the real highlight of this was I got a like from Aaron J. Watke, who is the executive producer of Star Trek Prodigy. So,
isn't that excellent? That's excellent. That was kind of neat.
Yeah,
Joe got a follow-up tweet from him too, didn't he? Didn't you?
I didn't get a follow-up tweet. I got the like for my a promotion of last week's episode on Twitter.
Okay.
And I just was thrilled to death that here's an executive producer of the show liking my tweets. So I thought that was really cool.
I think that's amazing. I think that's awesome. By the way, guess what? Angela's here.
Thank you, Angela.
He offers you a bravo, Leo.
Yes.
Hey, Angela, good to see you. Good to see you. Also, while we're at it, our good buddy, hang on, I gotta switch over to this. Our good buddy John Van Gostein. Is that am I pronouncing that right, John? Van Gostein, or is it Van Gostein? I'm not sure. But at any rate, he gave us a thumbs up, which is great.
Oh, nice.
We love to see John here. And I'm trying to think what What were some of the best moments in this episode for you guys? Leo, why don't you kick us off with one?
I loved they say, let's go to the bridge, and they do a little play about the Enterprise.
Yes.
And like everything is like a little bit off. Like it's like they play telephone.
Right.
And like all the names are slightly off. All the stuff is slightly doesn't quite work. Like, but they're so sincere. And they also, while like the details are a little fuzzy, they're all super into it. And they're all honoring that sort of Starfleet and Federation outlook.
Right.
Which I thought was really a delight. I love seeing that, and I do love an amateur stage version of a TV show. There's something very very about that. I think that was a highlight for me amongst others, but that in particular, because everybody was so into it. They were very, they're like.
How about you, Joe?
Well, along those lines, of course. I mean, I thought that the homage, but not quite there, homages were really clever. I mean, I really enjoyed the entrance of Mr. Sprock, for example. And of course the ultimate payoff of what the gallows actually is.
Yeah.
I also have I'll point out, just in terms of another favorite moment that may not occur to a lot of people, is that I'm enjoying just what it seems to be a growing presence of the Dauntless and their mission.
Right.
We got a little bit of that, just enough forward momentum there to keep us going and looking forward to more.
Right. Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. That's true. What did you guys think of the fact that James T really had an over the top Shatner impersonation?
I liked it. I liked it. It did feel almost like a bunch of Star Trek fans were trapped on a planet, and after a while, their descendants forgot that it was a TV show. It's a little bit of a wink and a nod, but I enjoyed it. It was more. It was less William Shatner and more Kevin Pollak as William Shatner.
Right.
One review I read indicated. But I liked it because it was, again, it came from like a sincere place. And even Zero said, yeah, I don't detect any sort of duplicity. They're all very sincere about what they're doing.
Right.
What was interesting also is that it reflected the fact that the crew, especially Dal, is feeling like imposter syndrome. And they're like, everybody's play acting and they don't even know that they are.
Right.
And they're feeling he spells it out. They're like us because we don't know what we're doing either.
Right.
Well, and basically it definitely had the definite feel of the historical documents from Lieutenant Garavik. We had a little bit of Galaxy Quest going on here. And I thought that really lent to the charm of the, as Leo points out, the sincerity and the good intentions of the, unfortunately, a little bit misled, planet natives.
Well, and it is interesting because at one point you actually see one of them holding a real communicator, and then I started to think, okay, made me think of a piece of the action.
Yeah,
I thought, is this a similar story where somebody left a piece of technology behind by mistake, and therefore this whole civilization grew up around it? But it turned out to be different, But yeah.
Well, here's also. Let me. This was an interesting moment where they're like in the sickbay and they have Garavik's tunic, his red tunic, because in this, by the way, Garavik was a character who appeared in the TOS episode Obsession, which was about that monster that drained everybody's hemoglobin.
Right.
You remember that?
Right.
And his father was the commander of the Farragut, where Kirk served, and Kirk got a commendation for bravery, but like half of the Farragut's crew was killed by that creature.
Right.
Whether you want to consider a monster or an animal, or just merely a creature.
Yeah.
So he was a character. He was played, and I have this in my notes, played by an actor by the name of Stephen Brooks, the original one, and he was voiced by Fred Tassacor, if I'm pronouncing his last name, who does the voice of Shax on Lower Decks. He's also a very well-known voice actor.
Cool.
So
Well, didn't he also pick up Sprock and a couple others in this episode?
Yeah,
as well?
he did. He did a lot of the voices of the people on the planet. But if you looked at his tunic, it almost looked more like a tunic from Strange New Worlds than it does the original series. Like it was kind of a high collar. It wasn't exactly. It was like a look because the badge looked a little more like the patches we had. It wasn't. It didn't look like it was metal, but it was like a weird sort of overlap between the two editions of early Star Trek. So,
right.
Well, as was the bridge recreation, I think there was.
Yeah,
it was mainly TOS, but I saw some hints of Strange New Worlds in there as well.
But so now, Chris, you had you said before you didn't tell us what it is. There was one thing that sort of bugged you, but you enjoy the episode so much that you can't really be too
right.
annoyed.
Okay, all right, okay.
Let's see if we have the same thing, Chris. I'm kind of sure we do.
See, Joe. We'll see.
Yeah.
So the protostar was in the Gamma Quadrant, correct?
Delta Quadrant.
Delta Quadrant.
Yeah.
Delta Quadrant. Right. Okay. It was beyond where the furthest outpost of Starfleet was in the 24th century, correct?
Yeah.
I believe so, yeah.
Okay. I don't think the Enterprise would have gotten out that far.
I don't think the Enterprise did.
And that's my only problem with this episode is that it kind of glossed over that in the sense that the Enterprise wouldn't have gotten anywhere near that section of space. So that's a flaw. But because it was just so much fun, I am willing to hand wave that and not get too bent out of shape about it. But that was my greatest issue with the episode. It just it didn't match up properly for me. I'm trying to think of how to say that better. But
may I present my potential issue and then have Leo explain both of them away, because I know he's going to, and as he should. But I could be totally wrong. Let me go on a limb, because before the show, I kind of arrived a little bit late at the party this week as far as the pre-show chat, and I didn't have an opportunity to review the original Galileo 7 original series episode, so I could be wrong on this. But wasn't the shuttlecraft destroyed?
It was. I can assume that much like they have an Enterprise E and B and so on,
right?
That they just got a new shuttlecraft and they made it the Galileo again.
But yeah, I thought of that too. That's the Galileo, and I love that they called it the Gallows, which I thought was great.
Yeah,
right.
Hey, Scott Taylor's here tonight as well. Gave us a thumbs up. Thank you so much, Scott. And
but I believe that they had dialogue in this episode that indicated that was the original Galileo 7. Maybe they will have a theory for us in terms of maybe it fell into a black hole or something and ended up in the Delta Quadrant.
I don't know, but Craig said it bugged him as well too.
My assumption is that some anomaly is responsible for him ending up that far away from the Federation. Galileo 7 did get destroyed. Engine exploded.
I thought so.
True.
Yeah.
No, you guys are correct.
Okay.
It's always tricky with fan service, because having the Galileo and the Gallows is definitely fan service.
Right.
I don't think we ever heard of another name of a shuttle on Star Trek.
Not on TOS, no, I don't think so.
Correction. I remember the Copernicus later on in the series.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
That was a designated 5th shuttle. It was a 5 after the register number.
So
because I don't think they even say what shuttle Decker took when he went out. He was just in a shuttle. So. I don't think there was
another Galileo, and that's how they.
Yeah, right. There you go. Yeah.
Like they always take the Galileo, right? It's Galileo. Fine. I think that there's always the thing. It could have been fixed with one line of dialogue, but a TV show, while they don't have commercials, they don't have the burden of commercials in a streaming service. This was originally meant to be a show on Nickelodeon with commercials.
Right.
and for some reason it went directly to streaming.
Yeah.
So they are probably building along a, unlike, let's say, a show made directly for Netflix, which will not have the same act structure or breaks as a show on broadcast TV.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
So, on the one hand, they're like, yes, they might have, if he just said something in his log about like, I was caught in a spatial anomaly and ended up far beyond anything the furthest reaches of any Federation ship, and that might have, given us at least, like, oh, okay, something weird happened. I'm just going to assume something weird happened, and that's how we ended up here.
Okay, maybe, so that brings up a point.
Yes.
So the people were familiar with Kirk and Spock and Sulu and Uhura.
Yeah.
Was the Enterprise actually there?
I don't think it was.
I mean, I don't know how they would have known all of that because the shuttle was pretty much destroyed. So it's not like they could have gotten into library tapes, and they knew how to run the bridge of the Enterprise. So it makes me think the Enterprise must have been there.
I'm not sure. Because we saw a communicator and there was a phaser in that case, and I'm going to assume that a Federation's shuttlecraft is equipped with like sort of backup equipment, like tricorders, communicators, phasers. They probably have like a little storage locker with, not a ton, but a few extra stuff in case you crash on a planet and you can't get off. That's why I call the Galileo the red shirt of shuttles. Thank you, Keith. Jacobson, well put. And if they had a tricorder, I'm thinking Ensign told them. Yes, I'm thinking that Garvik probably told them about them, and if he had a tricorder and taught them. A tricorder has it's got a lot of stuff on it. It's not just a scanner.
Right.
So if he taught them how to use it, then they read it and they started figuring it out.
I'm just afraid if we scratch the surface too much, we're gonna. Because why would they know what Bill Shatner sounds like? I mean, what Captain Kirk sounds like. You know what I mean? Like
or Sulu, or
Sulu, exactly, or any of them. I just feel like my gut was that the Enterprise was there, and because of the that wouldn't work.
Gentlemen, I have the explanation.
But yeah,
I have the explanation, guys. Here it is.
All right.
And this is not just for a shameless plug for my benefit, but I just sent out information to my audience on what I'm calling the Joe Townsend multiverse.
Okay.
With that spirit in mind, they tapped into somehow an alternate universe where Star Trek exists as fiction. And that's why they picked up all the exaggerations, all the.
Well, Keith says that he thinks that the ensign was doing impressions of the crew.
That seems okay. I'll because Garvik kept doing impressions of them. Yeah. I think that tracks as well as anything else.
Yeah.
Well, and more realistically, Chris and Leo, I mean, I think Chris kind of put it, on the head. Along with the other inconsistency we kind of pointed out, we got to look at this show's intended audience.
Right.
They're not scrutinizing it like we are, obviously.
No, God, no.
Obviously for fun and affectionate purposes, but
yeah.
Also,
we just have to suspend some disbelief, obviously.
Well, I think that there's a certain amount of hand waving that has to come with a lot of science fiction. And if you look at Piece of the Action, which is a beloved episode, now they had the book, the gangs of 20th century Chicago.
Right.
But they all had the speech patterns down in a way that probably wouldn't be included in a scholarly text. They might not. And if they got the terminology right, they wouldn't have that, but they had them talking like Damon Runyon characters.
Right.
Like, listen, Kirko, Spocko and all that stuff. And they would,
what a way you fancy heaters.
Yeah, exactly. Even if there was like a lexicon of sort of slang of that period, it's likely that their intonations would not mimic Earth of
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
And I think that,
but it wouldn't have been nearly as funny. So that's
exactly, it wouldn't be near, and this episode would not have been nearly as enjoyable without the I am James D, and having that very specific Shatner speech patterns.
Yeah.
So I'm willing to hand wave that.
Well, I said that even when we were all, we have you guys probably know this by now, but we're all friends, and we have a chat thread on Messenger we use all the time. And I had said earlier to the guys, well, I got one thing that bugged me, and I'll tell you about it on the show, but at the same time, I also said, but I love the episode so much, I don't really care, so.
Well, that's what it boils down to, Chris, is that, in a more broad statement, I mean, without the, probably in this case, necessary inconsistencies, there'd be no show.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
It would be flat. But this is less about sort of the nostalgia, but I like the fact that Cenk and Pog sort of got to be heroic this episode, because they've been sort of playing him like a bit of a coward.
Right.
Right. Like he's like, Cenk and Pog will go last to protect everybody.
Yeah. Right.
But I was glad to see him jump on the shuttlecraft and use his hand to tie it off. And he's like, well, you don't have any tools. He's all my tools are up here.
Right.
And I like the idea that he's becoming a little bolder. He was frustrated because he could not figure out how to get rid of, this future device, underneath the bridge.
Yeah.
So he's feeling frustrated as an engineer. So he needed to have that win. And I like seeing him be bold. And I'm hoping that we'll get to see him be a little more like that sort of action engineer.
Hey, I totally forgot about something else. Speaking of character development, I can't think of it. I don't have your nifty notes in front of me, Leo. But the little squiggly guy is he's going to obviously evolve into something else.
That is Murph.
Murph, right?
Who is a melanoid slime worm.
Yeah.
We've never seen one before this show, but in the episode, TNG episode where Wesley was applying to Starfleet Academy, he was taking all those tests, and he runs into like another like officer who like starts like yelling at him, and everybody's like, whoa, 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 and then he yells back at him, and there's these this guy calls Wesley a melanoid slime worm. So
excellent catch.
That's right.
So we finally get to see him. He is cocooned up on the side of the barracks there on the ship, and he's turning into whatever he's going to turn in next.
Yeah, which is interesting. So that'll be kind of cool.
Interesting.
Well, like Chris, next time I'll have my cheat sheet prepared by Leo and right here in front of me. But for now, I'm going to rely on him to fill in the blank for me again. The leader, the captain of our crew, his name is
Gall.
Thank you. I think that's yet another example of where this episode, at least for me, having the limited viewing that I've had thus far, is a springboard for some future character development. I mean, he was very frustrated at the beginning of the episode, I felt, in terms of, we're not really Starfleet. We're not people they were hoping for. And now I think by episode's end, he's saying, you know what? We have a lot to offer, despite some of our limitations and some of our inadequacies in certain areas. So I'm looking, I'm really gratified to see that there's some of that really good, hopeful, optimistic character development going on in this show.
I mean, a big part of this episode was about imposter syndrome, because he was feeling that like, oh geez, we can't join Starfleet. You were stuck with the ship, and we got to keep away from them. And I don't, and then he catches the disease,
right?
And he does, they don't know what it is, and because there's all this interference, subspace interference, which was from the Galileo, as it turns out, if I'm not mistaken. So a lot of scans are, as good as they could be, and they're struggling. And he's feeling like frustrated because he's like, I'm supposed to be the captain, I'm supposed to be helping people, I can't even help myself. And and lest we forget they are kids,
right?
They're between I don't know, like the oldest is maybe 14. They're like around 14. I'm not sure how how old she is. She is she has a voice. She's voiced by a young actress. And
so it sounds like she's 7 or 8, maybe. That's it.
She might be. I think she might be like 10 because she's a little. I mean, of course, kids on TV shows are more articulate than children in real life.
Right.
So, but I don't think we can forget that they are children and they're coping remarkably well given the circumstances they're in.
Oh yeah.
What do we got?
My cheat sheet.
I'll have mine next time, I promise.
I wrote it because I was like, because sometimes you just forget these characters' names.
Right.
Right. And so I wrote them down, what they do and if what species they are.
And Leo did a great job. He's got the Protostar crew, the Dauntless crew, and the villain.
Yes.
Yeah.
By God, if I had access to a printer right now, I'd have mine too.
It's interesting. Let's talk a little bit about what's going on with Dauntless. Because apparently the Diviner is now sort of, after being exposed to Zero's, eye of madness as a Medusan, his memories are all jumbled, and he sounds like a sympathetic character to Janeway.
Right.
They stole the ship. My daughter's in danger. Blah, blah, blah. And she's like, this is no longer like a rescue mission. This is a manhunt. So they're all. And
if you notice, she's misunderstanding him in a way because when she asks about Chakotay, he says he was taken prisoner.
Yeah,
it doesn't say by who.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I'll be very surprised if Chakotay ends up being dead. I think that would be.
That would suck.
It would suck, and also I doubt. Don't kill off your characters off screen. He's a beloved character from Voyager, and my guess is that he was sold into servitude by the Diviner, to just get him out of the picture.
Right.
Because presumably he was not going to cooperate. I also the Protostar is clearly built for more than one person, although it's not that big a ship. Right. We've got those bunks, so I don't know what the rest of the crew was. I mean, I guess you could theoretically operate the Protostar with one person, but why would you? Why wouldn't you also have like an engineer, specialized engineer for this very specialized engine?
Oh, sure.
Another crew.
I mean, Janeway, the holographic Janeway is capable of doing a lot of things.
This is true,
but yeah.
Well, it's interesting that in Leo, help me. I'm drawing a blank on the original series episode, but the one with the overpopulated planet, and actually, I'm going to correct myself right off the bat. I'm thinking of the Paradise Syndrome, where Kirk was saying, "I can't control the ship. I can't fly it by myself. Everybody's gone down to the planet affected by the spores." Well, then 80 years later, of course, it was in the fantasy realm, but Picard's telling Kirk, said, "Why we need more just than you and me?" So, but in terms of logic and storytelling, it does seem like there would be a crew necessary of some type of.
I would think, I don't believe that he's flying that ship out there by himself. Do you?
No, I hope not.
Yeah, I mean, that would be ridiculous. Hey, Angela has a comment here, and I know this is going back to us talking about the age of the characters, but I don't fully get it. So maybe you can explain it to me.
Matt Gates, Congressman Matt Gates, who is under investigation for dating, paying for sex from underage girls.
Angela, no.
There we go.
Actually, at this point in history, Matt Gates is long dead.
Yeah, right, exactly. Well, Keith says he loved this episode. It seemed the most Star Trek like yet of the show so far. Garavik goes out of his way to save the aliens. The crew goes out of their way to save the aliens.
Mhm.
Everybody was so damn Starfleet. It was great.
I agree. I feel this really does embrace. This is the first episode where they felt like a crew, even though they were struggling.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
But they were like, we're a crew and we're Starfleet, and they're becoming Starfleet, despite
In spite of themselves.
Well, I would say despite like a lack of formal education,
Right.
like none of them went to Starfleet Academy.
Right.
None of them really knew anything about Starfleet, until very recently.
Right.
So but I loved, it did feel very Star Trek, and I feel like they've slowly been building towards this.
Yeah.
And I think that is, especially since this is geared for a younger audience.
Right.
And you don't want to, as I said, you don't want to overwhelm them with 50 plus years of Star Trek experience.
Right.
Which is a lot.
Right.
But if they watched the show and they were like, oh, there are other Star Trek shows, you're like, why? Yes, there are.
Yeah.
And then you're like, well, you might start them at TNG, or if they're like, what about Janeway? So they start with Voyager, whatever it is. They get to experience these this thing, and this is a good way of speaking through my hat, because I don't have any kids, and I've not talked to. Like, I don't know what your kids think of this show, if they're enjoying it, or if they're even watching.
Like I said, little Penny will watch anything that has Star Trek in it for 15 minutes.
There you go.
I don't know why. I guess because she knows Daddy likes it, so she always likes to. If it's Trek, she goes to, oh, it's Trek, and then she wants to watch it.
Did she watch any of this?
What's that?
Did she watch any of Prodigy?
Yes.
And she likes it.
She likes it. Yeah, she likes it. I don't think she understands what's going on, but she likes it.
Sure.
And then my older middle child, Charlotte, who is exactly the target age for this, I haven't really sat her down to watch it. I think she saw one episode back in the beginning, and I don't know if it really caught her attention, because we were going to do a Prodigy show that really was for kids.
Yeah.
And we talked about this, and I was going to have Charlotte on, but she would have had to watch every episode. And I tried getting her into a couple. So I don't know. She might like it better now. I don't know. She's also not a huge Star Wars fan, so that might have been part of it.
Well, Prodigy thus far reminds me of I come up with a couple of similarities. Of course, from my own childhood, I started reading Mad Magazine when I was 9 years old. Didn't understand most of it.
Right. Me too.
Loved it, but loved it despite that fact. And of course, now rereading some of that, those issues from back then, have a new appreciation. I think this show very much encapsulates that feeling, because, and I don't want to draw the wrath of any of our fellow Lower Decks fans, because I am one of them for sure, even though I'm playing catch up there as well. But in terms of comparison, especially again given the target audience, I've seen much less of Prodigy thus far than I've seen of Lower Decks. And again, there are levels of complexity and nuance over there that this show doesn't have. But on the other hand, I just think that the characters are so well defined on Prodigy that I don't need to play a lot of catch up.
Right.
I feel like I know them just on what little I've seen so far.
Right.
And I think that's a big plus, especially for younger viewers.
I don't know. Yeah, I think that's a really good point, Joe.
Thank
I
you.
don't understand why I'm not understanding people tonight. Or what's Craig talking about?
On the job radical immersion program. On the job, I don't know what he means.
Yeah, I don't know whether that's an iPhone problem or what.
Sorry, Craig, you lost me on that one.
I mean, I try to get everybody's comments on the show, so I think, well,
if you want to dumb that down for us,
throw that one out there and see what that's all about. I think Craig might be having a stroke,
or us. So
or one of us. Yeah, exactly.
50-50. But I like this, and I'm interested in what's going to happen with the Dauntless, because Janeway is a pretty determined commander, and she's got an excellent ship and crew working with her. So I imagine they will do it. It's funny because I think like a lot of people, you start watching and you're like, well, what would I do if I was in that situation?
Right.
That even though they can't they can't contact any Federation ships because they'll be infected by the weapon. But there's got to be a way of sending a message that's maybe a physical message. Like if you put something with just like with a signal on it that isn't necessarily, but is everything made on the ship infected with that machine? Like, or could they do like, even if it was just like a tablet made of metal and like a message on there, like,
But would a subspace communication do it? It didn't do it when they first got to. The only time it did it was when they physically came in contact with Starfleet.
Well, because he was downloading their logs when there was a link between the. But I think the idea that if two ships hail each other, and that was my impression from the first half of the first season at the very end, that it would infect. It's a reference to the kids' training. Okay.
Yeah, that's immersion program.
Okay.
I do immerse my kids in Star Trek. No question.
As you should, sir.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have a question for you guys. And maybe this will benefit others that are like me, that are kind of new to the game. What is the significance specifically of the title of the series, Prodigy? I mean, it's not the ship, obviously. That's the protostar.
No.
Is it just basically referring to that they're up and coming, with the characters themselves, I assume, and just kind of a little bit unclear on that.
Well, the diviner called and let me check my Gwen, his daughter, called her his prodigy.
Yeah.
Okay.
In the first half of the season, so because she's he is from the future, and I think she's, I don't know if a clone or she was grown in a vat. There was some implication of that in the beginning of the series. So I don't think he brought like his baby daughter with him to the past.
Right.
That explains a lot.
My impression was that she was grown, like she was not manufactured is perhaps the wrong word, but
right.
Made in a less traditional fashion.
Right.
Well, sometimes I feel like I was grown in a vat, so I can sympathize.
Yeah. So
thanks, Lou. That helps a lot. Thank you.
So yeah, I think that is where it's from. If somebody knows better than me, and it'd be super easy for you to know more than I do. Let us know. But yeah,
right. Well, that could be a direct reference, and then maybe a more subtle, ongoing reference is the nature of the crew we have with the youngsters, and they're the wannabe prodigy, perhaps, of Starfleet, etc. So
right.
They're doing better. If I had to drive a car, like if I was with one of you guys who can drive, and something terrible happened to you, and I had to drive, we'd be kind of fucked because,
right.
I mean, I'd be like, like all I had to do was compare to the way I played Grand Theft Auto, which case I stole a lot of cars because I just kept fucking them up.
Right.
And it was easy. I like just hop out, throw some asshole out of a Porsche and just drive off.
Right.
So anyway, but there you go. So I think they're handling it remarkably well. And I liked when they changed the bridge to look like the TO, like sort of this. They had like TOS stations using sort of hologram technology.
Yeah, I thought that was cool.
Yeah. Well, it's very cool, and it made sense in terms of the plot. I mean, the people from the planet need something they could understand and operate.
Right. And I actually got a little choked up when they did that. I thought it was kind of cool. All right. So, guys, rating. 5 is the best. 1, not so great. What did you guys think?
Leo, you first.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna give it a 4.5 on the scale. I really enjoyed it. I wouldn't say it's perfect. There are like a few things that don't quite, like you have to hand wave some of that stuff.
Right.
But overall, a real delight, and a little love letter to the original series, which I sometimes feel like the original series, there are fans, like people like us who grew up watching the original series like in syndication,
Right.
And that's how we came to Star Trek. But there are a lot of people who started watching TNG. Some people started watching Deep Space Nine, or Voyager, or even Enterprise.
Right.
So whatever your first Star Trek, and of course there are now people, Discovery is their first Star Trek. So I think whatever your first Star Trek is, it's like your
like first your first girl. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this was a love letter, acknowledging maybe some of the silliness of the original series.
Right.
I love the original series, but I'm going to say half to a third of them are not good episodes. And you can argue there's some real dogs in there, and sometimes we enjoy them. Like Spock's brain is ridiculous. It's
great fun,
but it is loads of fun. Yeah,
but we've gotten brain. What is brain? You are not Morg. You are not I Morg. And all this stuff that's just like absurd, and they play it so seriously. But,
how about the episode with Vol?
Vol, yeah,
with all the
Starsky.
Guys.
Remember Starsky in the
six
How about you, Joe? Out of 5.
You know what? I'm gonna get the same number, but additional reasons. I will say 4.5. Again, some of the inconsistencies, some of that stuff kind of took me out of it a little bit. But then again, is it fair if that to happen, given what it is? But there's so many strengths. I think it took the best elements of other series, including the original, including TNG, including Lower Decks, and kind of melded them into a really effective whole. We had some nice humor with the impersonations of the original crew.
Right.
We also had some really inspirational aspects, especially in the last act.
Oh yeah.
Where the kids' crew is really coming through and they're overcoming their own doubts and insecurities. And it's a good standalone episode. I know it's part of an ongoing scenario, and
no, but it does. You're right, Joe. Yeah. It stands alone in many ways because it doesn't really have a lot to do with the development if you think about it. I mean, it does.
Well, I mean, I also look in all the stuff that we watch in terms of old and new Trek. I look for what's the rewatchability factor, and this definitely is rewatchable. Some of them you just never look at again.
Right.
Yeah.
Then this is not one of those. This is one that you could look at again.
I would agree.
It.
Yeah.
Kristen, your rating? What do you give this?
I'm going to jump in with you guys. I was going to say 4, but I'll be good and give it 4.5. I thought there was a lot of really fun bits to this. So some moments that, like you said, Joe, were sort of inspirational in a way, and I did get a little choked up when all of a sudden the aliens are up on the old bridge of the Enterprise and they're getting stuff done, and I don't know, I thought it was very cool. And again, I did have some issues, but as you say, there's a lot of hand waving in sci-fi, and it is a show for kids. So again, I don't think that the average audience watching it is sitting there saying, well, no, wait a minute, the way we do, so anyway.
Well, 4.5 Vulcan sleuths, I see.
That's what it is. Yeah.
That's what it is. Very clever.
Yeah.
That translates to a letter grade of A, and I think this is definitely an A episode.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I will say it's one of my favorite, if not my favorite, episodes so far of this particular series.
I would agree with that, and I think part of it is the nostalgia for me.
Yeah,
and it was thinking about this show. It made me think of the 1970s animated series that they did. That was, it was a half hour on TV, minus commercials. So it's about 22 minutes, something like that.
Yeah.
They played those very seriously. It was for kids, but it sort of missed the mark because it was maybe a little too sophisticated for children
right
of that time, but it also it wasn't long enough. Like it always felt like we got a little shortchanged, and I kind of feel like if this episode maybe, but I understand like a half hours ago or 24 minutes or however long it is, credits included, is let's say about 20, 22 minutes is probably just enough for a 9 or 10-year-old to digest and not be overwhelmed or not get bored. I would have liked a little more. I always feel like there's a lot of stuff they could have explored. There was more stuff I wanted to see on that planet and what had happened. But
and again, I'm left with that question about whether the Enterprise was actually there or not. But I also wasn't quite sure why they had green shirts.
Well, it's funny because Kirk's original tunic was green.
Right, I know that.
And
it's like an olive. It's like an olive green which is what I'm wearing. This actually, in reality, is an olive green, but it comes across on camera as gold.
Yeah.
Well, and not only that, I mean, I don't know about the color, but the thing that struck me in the makeshift uniforms is they were all stitched up kind of sloppily and again, kind of the uniform equivalent of their bad acts, impersonations of the original crew,
right.
Close but no cigar.
Yeah.
But it was also interesting. It's like he was the bearer, ensign, or ensign, the bearer of the red, and of course the real joke being that red shirts were, had a fairly short expiration date.
Yeah.
But the idea that the person who wears the red is the hero is not the disposable figure.
Right.
So,
and he was an ensign, which is great.
And he was an ensign, and they're they don't, they got it sort of, but not quite. It's like sort of explain, like maybe you explain something to Penny, and she gets the gist of it, but a lot of the details she'll fill in the details as she sees fit. As sometimes when you tell a kid a story, they'll be like, "Well, this is what this is about," and you're like, "Sure, okay."
Yeah.
Well, I think that's an excellent point, Leo. It goes right along with what I was going to offer, and this is another theory, this is a serious one. Don't worry. And maybe I'm overreaching here as far as the intention of the writers and producers, but it is a show for young viewers.
Right.
It is a shorter series with shorter episodes for that purpose. If they took the time, even half dozen lines of dialogue to explain away some of the things we're pointing out as far as inconsistencies, kids are going to go,
right.
So maybe there's an intention there. Maybe there's intention that, okay, the kids don't care. The adults can make up their own theories.
Right.
And enjoy it on that level. Right. I think that's a possibility.
Yeah. I read an article today that talked about the different forms of Star Wars canon. And they're kind of different forms of Star Trek canon as well. Because they were talking about, you've got the movies, that's one canon. You've got the cartoons and the comic books, that's another one, and the novels and so on and so forth. So, and I think that that's true. And I think that as a show that's introducing kids to Star Trek, this can play a little fast and loose with canon just in order to get the entertainment factor in. So,
Well, and the two things that this episode has left me with in terms of wanting to see what comes next, what exactly is Murph going to morph into?
Right.
And of course, what is the fate of our good friend Chakotay?
I'm going to predict that we will see Chakotay maybe at the end of the season. Maybe I don't think they can keep him. I don't think that they can keep that mystery going too long.
No,
with us feeling, annoyed.
I don't think he's going to get rescued. I think that's going to get dragged over to next season.
Maybe, but maybe if they even have a shot of him,
where he is. Yeah, we'll see what's going on with him.
And Murph may turn into some savage killer beast of some kind. I hope not, but we'll see.
Right.
We'll see exactly.
Yeah.
It's and he's the actor now. I wish I'd made a note of the actor's name, but D. Bradley Baker, who famously did the voice of all the clones on the Clone Wars cartoon. Um, and he's also like a well-known voice actor. He does the voice of Murph, which is, it's always funny because sometimes there are characters you're like, is that really somebody does that voice? Much like now I'm really showing my my Swiss cheese brain. The actor who did the voice of K2SO in Rogue One, also from Firefly, played Walsh. I'm blanking on his name.
Oh, I don't remember his name either.
And it's bad because I really like him as an actor.
Oh, I love him. Yeah, he's great.
He's a very talented voice actor. He did the voice of the chicken in Moana, which
that's.
I mean, he got paid to do that, and I mean, obviously, it's easier to direct a human being to make chicken noises than it is to direct a chicken.
Yeah, right.
You can get what you want. They're notoriously, difficult to work with on set.
Hey, I want to catch up with some stuff here before we start to wrap up. Craig Lubin made the comment that he suspects the diviner's daughter is clone based on his genome.
Seems that I would say that tracks.
Yep. He also said that Spock's brain is technically a zombie episode.
Not wrong.
No wonder I love it.
And then for some reason, Angela says, if zombies are chasing us, I don't care about my car. Just get us out of there.
Yes. I think that goes to my comment. It was like something bad happens and I have to drive.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I won't have to worry. If it's zombies, I won't worry about hitting them.
That's true. That's very true.
I can drive in my Grand Theft Auto style.
So it all works out.
Yeah.
Oh, Craig says,
thank you, Craig Lubin.
Yeah, yes, there you
go. Very talented actor and apparently a super nice guy from what I've heard.
Yeah.
And apparently here's a Star Wars story, but I saw him at a panel at New York Comic Con, and he talked about doing when he was shooting Rogue One, and he was K2SO. So they had him in sort of a motion capture. He would be on stilts, like with a cutout of the robot's head above his head. So for sightline, and apparently the actor plays Cassian Andor, whose name I'm blanking on now because again,
come on,
Swiss cheese brain. Yeah. Be like, why don't you get close to you should stand close to the ledge because that's where your character is, and they're just screwing with each other on set.
Right.
Diego Luna. That is.
There you go.
Also doing a bang up job on Andor for fans who are not afraid to also love Star Wars. I don't understand that having to choose. I'm like, that's like you have to choose burgers or pizza. I'm like, I can have both. You know,
at the same time, even.
Well,
where is that inevitable crossover? We've been waiting for 40 years.
I know. It's like, oh, are you a Burger King guy or McDonald's? Are you a Coke or a Pepsi guy? It's like, okay.
Can I take a moment to and Chris, correct me if this isn't exactly how you would do it yourself, but I just wanted to tell you how impressed I was with the special Trek Tonight episode that came out earlier this week, where Chris shows us some of his valued Trek toys and collectibles. And I encourage everyone, if you haven't seen it, to seek it out on your favorite platform and check it out. It's really a lot of fun.
Thank you. Yeah. I'd love to have time to do more things like that, and hopefully I'm working my way into it because I shot actually a unboxing video for a RPG, but it was kind of a test run, so I think I'm gonna redo it. But I just like doing stuff like that. It's fun. And
I enjoy it. I had a kid.
I'm glad you enjoyed it, Joe. That's great. Well, I mean, we talked about it, and I kind of, sort of half opened the box and waved it around. But I thought, well, people might be interested to see what they were making as toys in the 90s. And the funny part of it is, I actually did end up thinking, oh, I don't have a tricorder out here because I'm not sure where mine is. So I thought, oh, I'll pull the tricorder out. Well, the Playmates tricorder is like this big. It's like a mini, like, you know.
Is it
So
like
like,
a
well,
TOS?
I'll leave that in the box.
Or is it the TNG? Was it TNG
No,
or
the
TOS?
TOS one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
so it should be a lot bigger than that.
It's like a little, like a child size.
Star Trek stuff that is in storage. I have
Same here.
the Bajoran phaser, which I think is a very cool phaser.
Right.
I also got one of those, the Klingon, I forgot the name of it, that dagger where it goes ching to the side.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it even makes a sound like that, like a shing.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, they're cool.
Well, Chris, between your driving skills and your dagger, I'm not going to mess with you, buddy.
My plastic dagger, my video game driving skills, I'm a real danger to others.
I actually remember going to, I don't know where that Klingon dagger first appeared, like in what movie it appeared in, or
3, I believe.
Star Trek 3.
Yeah. But I remember going to the Pennsylvania Ren Fair, and the guy selling swords had one, and I should have bought it. Yeah.
A lot of people like to go to Ren fairs dressed as Star Trek characters, acting like they've come back in time.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
That is an actual thing.
Well, and I've seen some Doctor Who's too.
Sure.
Yeah.
That all tracks.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I think unless, does anybody else have any things to?
I don't. I liked it. I really enjoyed it. There were some neat things about it. It was very entertaining, and it felt very Star Trek to me. So
this is, I think, a good episode for kids to watch with their parents who are Star Trek fans.
Easily, yeah.
Because I think the older generation will be like, "Oh my God, they did that whole thing, and it was really funny." And the kids might, get a kick out of it. They probably won't get as much of a deep dive depending on their level of fandom. There are some kids who are hardcore Star Trek fans and know all this stuff. But is a tool for introducing Star Trek to a younger generation? I think they're doing a really excellent job.
Yeah, I do too.
I do have one question.
Yes.
And it's a lighthearted one. Okay, so our large sweet girl, Rock Top.
Yes.
She wears an outfit that has like pretty prominent suspender type straps down to her shorts or whatever.
Yeah.
And she puts her communicator on her bare chest. Yeah. Doesn't that hurt?
I mean, I'm assuming that there's some sort of adhesive going on with it. And
I hope so.
she's kind of got like the thing from the Fantastic Four sort of dermis situation.
Right.
So imagine that she doesn't feel a lot like the way like people with sort of the thin skin do.
Well, she just knows it would be in the wrong place if it wasn't there. So I have to give her credit for that.
That's true. Craig tells us that Christopher Lloyd, as the Klingon captain in Trek 3, was the first one seeing the dagger, he thinks.
I think I'm
sure he's right.
That tracks for me. Yeah.
Yeah, the one that killed David Marcus. That's the very, very blade.
Right. Boy, there was something I was going to add. Oh, I know what it was. Little plug. Not that I have any need or want to, but I'm dying to go up there and check this out. But I understand the Star Trek Enterprise set tour, James Colley's thing up in Ticonderoga, New York, is going to get on loan. I think it's on loan. The original Galileo shuttlecraft.
Oh, neat.
So that was one more thing to go and see when you go up and visit them. And hopefully I will get a chance to get up there at some point.
I would love to go there too. I think the story is that the shuttlecraft was actually found like in a junkyard originally. Like it ended up like in a junkyard.
Yeah.
And somebody in Japan found it, bought it, and lovingly restored it.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. No, there's a whole video online, actually, if you look it up on YouTube. I think there's the whole thing about the restoration of the Galileo shuttlecraft, and they give you all the details about where it was. It had spent time at a preschool, and they give you the whole history of where it went and what happened to it. But at any rate, if you want to see it, there it will be.
Yes.
If you go, I look forward to a report. I would love to hear about it.
Oh yeah. Well, we talked a little bit, actually. Leo, Craig, and I talked a little bit about going up there, and
You haven't quite been able to get
will they
actually
allow
have
photography if you go?
What's that?
I'm wondering if they'll allow photography at all.
They do actually, and also you can. One person in your group can pay for a photo session, and their photographer will set up pictures of you in each of the major set pieces.
Well, I know that,
and it's not very expensive to add that. It's you know.
I'm sure you'll dig deep and come up with that, guys. But
yeah.
Well, if it like I said, if it happens with some or all three of you, I'm looking forward to seeing photos on the Trek Tonight channel.
Oh, definitely. Believe me, we will post them. Part of the reason that I wanted to do it also was because when Leo and I were in high school, we wanted to recreate on stage episodes of Star Trek. And we had a moment where we were doing the mirror universe scene between Scotty and Kirk. And every time Leo, who was playing Scotty, would grab my shoulder and say, "Jim," the two of us would crack up. So we could never keep a straight face for that. So we need at least to get a photograph of us in that pose by the transporter.
All right.
All right, guys. Oh, here he is. We should visit.
Shuttle airworthy. We'll leave that to you, Craig. You are the actual engineer amongst us.
If only knew what Craig can.
Yeah. Hey, believe it or not, for talking about a half-hour show, we are 7 minutes over an hour. But there was a lot of good things to say about this episode.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. So tune in next week. We'll be on episode 15 now?
14.
Episode 14. We already have those posted, so you'll know in advance. You can look on our Facebook page and see, obviously every week it's the same time, but we did have that. And then we're going to be doing a Thanksgiving special because we will all be busy, obviously, on Thanksgiving. So we're going to pre-record a special to run on Thanksgiving night. And that should be a lot of fun. And hopefully, because it's Turkey Day, I will be able to cut down a sample of the Turkish knockoff Star Trek.
That's going to be great.
We'll be able to look at that a little bit, where the red shirts are brown shirts and Spock wears a green, a gold tunic, and it's crazy. And they blatantly rip off stuff from like music from Star Trek. So it's wonderful. And the episode that I have access to is a very odd retelling of the Man Trap. And of course, I don't speak Turkish, so I don't really fully understand it. But then they throw in a guy who's sort of like Harry Mudd.
Okay.
So it's like two episodes compressed into one.
It's sort of like the film equivalent of, if you ever see those sort of like Mexican superhero action figures, and it's like Spider-Man, except he has a Captain America shield and the colors are all backwards.
Right. Yeah.
So I think that this is the video equivalent thereof.
So if I can cut it down to just a few minutes, because it goes on, it's very long. Yeah. If I can cut it down, we'll do a little Mystery Science Theater on that one and watch a few minutes of it for Thanksgiving. And that should be fun. So
that'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and then after that, we'll come back with another double header because we won't be able to see the episode for that week.
Right.
And then we'll do another double header on Prodigy. So
well, that sounds appropriate because we're going to be by that time we'll be at the midpoint of this second half of season 1 already.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
It's going pretty fast because we just had 13. We got 7 more episodes.
Right.
So I think this will be over more quickly than we imagined.
And all of a sudden, we're going to have to start thinking, what are we going to do next?
Yeah.
Anyway. All right, gents. I'm going to sign off.
Okay.
I hope everybody has a wonderful week. We will see you here again next week at the same time. Again, I encourage.
It hurts more to do it the wrong way.
It does. It does. What is it?
I spent so many years literally forcing my hands to be able to do this.
Yeah, McCoy would never been able to do this.
Good night, Angela. Good to see you.
Good night, Angela. Thank you.
What was it? Love logs and what?
Love logs and proper.
Love logs and proper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it wasn't that, maybe it's even better than what they had.
I don't know. I forget what it was. And what did they call Starfleet?
Starflight.
Starflight. That's right. Yeah. All right, gents. I'll see you later. I'm gonna roll us out of here. I think Penny is asleep and she's sick, so I'm not gonna try to rouse her into coming in here to dance.
No, she'll dance for us next time.
She will dance for us next week, I believe.
Yeah.
All righty. Yeah, she heard me talking. Oh. Well, we got a tiny bit of bonus content here. Here's Penny. How are you feeling?
Good.
You feel better?
No. My shoulder's stinging, but it was just crazy for about.
Oh, you were crazy for a bit?
But it was fun.
Oh, that's good. All right, folks. I'm going to roll out of here. And Angela says, hi, cutie. All right, guys. Have a great week. And we will.
I like it.
Do you want to say bye-bye to everybody?
I like this.
You like the agonizer. You know what? That does not surprise
me. No. Watch out, Dad.
That does
Take
not
the batteries out.
me. Yeah.
I like this. I like it.
Yeah. Just don't use that on your nephew, okay? All right, guys. Have a great week, everybody. And I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Do you want to say bye-bye?
This is like a game to me.
I know. Okay. All right. See you later, guys.
See you later.